All right. Well, hello and welcome back to the Money Wisdom Podcast, powered by Johnson Brunetti. I'm Nick Colantuno. I'm one of your co-hosts, certified financial planner up here in our Boston, Massachusetts offices. We're glad you're with us. Jake, my friend, it's good to see you again. Why don't you say hello to all the viewers and listeners?
You as well. My name is Jake Dozer. I'm a certified financial planner down here in our Connecticut offices, coming from our headquarters in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and I'm excited for another episode.
As always, and we've got a good one, a timely one. The Winter Olympics are upon us, and it's a very special event. It's something that only happens once every 4 years. But as you are aware, it's not like the athletes just show up and all of a sudden they're skiing down a mountain in the Italian Alps. There's years and decades and just tons and tons of preparation that goes into it. And, such as retirement. A lot of people think, oh, I'm 65, I'm retiring. That is not the time to start planning and preparing for retirement. As you're aware, when we're doing work with our clients, it could be years, it could be decades of planning and preparing for this next phase of life. So we wanted to have this episode, one, because it's the Olympics. It's a very impressive event, as you're aware, but it's not just natural talent, right? It takes discipline. It takes a focused mindset. So, I'm always looking into other professions, other industries, saying, what can we learn, from the way that these people prepare for what they do every single day? And how can we translate that for our clients and how they're preparing for retirement? So we've got a couple topics here, Jake, that I want to pick your brain on and see how you're approaching these subjects with clients. But the first thing I really want to sort of press you on a little bit is how are you setting really specific, but also measurable goals for clients when they're approaching their retirement years?
Well, I think there's a few things that come to mind. The word realistic comes to mind. The word measurable comes to mind. Knowing your numbers is really what it comes all down to. So when we sit with folks, one of the things we want to know is how much does it cost to live your life? We want to know how much it costs, not just for your fixed expenses, but for you to live your life, for the amount of travel that you intend to do, for the eating out that you want to do, for the gifting that you want to do, for the upcoming expenses as a lump sum, what around the house needs to be done. I want to know what is the outflows of cash that are going to need to come from somewhere from you when you're not working anymore, right? And so if we don't start with that, we kind of are aiming at a invisible target. And so that's a really important thing when you're thinking about measuring specific objectives, and certainly true in the Olympics and definitely true in our retirement. And then it also comes down to kind of knowing your numbers from the flip side. I think about what's the required rate of return I need in order to make my plan work. Well, that informs the amount of risk we need to take to get there. What is the amount of withdrawals I can take annually and not hurt myself from a tax perspective, from a running out perspective, from going back to work, right? So it comes down to, it's not all just math. There's certainly a lot of psychology and emotional elements of it, but we need to be able to have something to aim at. We need to be able to have a target so that we can understand how well will your portfolio handle. Another one, what if you lose money in the market? How much can you lose before you got to go back to work, right? How much loss is too much? How much gain is enough, right? Do you feel like you got to get a 20% year over year return to make your plan work? Well, that's exciting, but it can also come with 30% loss. And does that 30% loss, is that more painful than a 20% gain is friendly, right? So it's quantifying all these things. I guess in short, don't go into retirement with a I hope so and dream. Go into a retirement with I know. And that's really what planning boils down to.
Yeah, that's valuable. I think you probably said it once, Jake. You said you would never drive a car at night without your headlights on, right? And if you don't, start with the end in mind, almost, figure out, okay, when I retire, what do I want my lifestyle to look like? How much is that going to, cost? Right. And, so that's the specific goal, saying I need X when I retire. I need X amount of income or X amount of assets, or I need to get my expenses to X level. Once you have the end goal in mind, well, then it becomes very easy along the way to be able to measure, how close you are or how far you are. And like you said, if the market's up, maybe you get a little closer, a little quicker. If the market's down, maybe you get a little farther, a little quicker, right? So, so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made along the way. And that's where, getting to topic number 2 here, not just creating that plan, not just figuring out, okay, I've had my conversation with my advisor, I know where I'm trying to go, I know what I have to do to get there, but really regularly reviewing it, right? And I think this also kind of goes back on what we just talked about, measuring, reviewing. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between those concepts. But talk to us about, okay, someone is a client or they've been working with you for 3 or 4 years and maybe they're not retiring for another 3 or 4 years. You're halfway to that end goal, right? What sort of
Yes.
conversations are you having at that point along the journey?
I mean, I think that these conversations are just as critical as the one post-retirement. But I think as there's things that you need to be aware of that you need to do, and then there's things that you need to make sure you stay away from with a 10-foot pole. So number one, I think about Olympic athletes when they're halfway from being invited to the Olympics to showing up at the Olympics. You do not see them radically changing their preparation methodology. You see them improving what's already there. So it starts with fundamentals at a young age with these athletes. These athletes are 3, 4, 5 years old when they start picking up these sports oftentimes. And they're not changing sports midway. No, they already know the sport they have. They've already identified that they have the talent to get there. They have the willpower and drive. They have the training techniques and program, and they're becoming incrementally better, and they're making tweaks to make sure they stay on track. Well, so is retirement. If you're approaching retirement of, hey, I'm going to take lots and lots of risk all the way until the last minute, and then I'll lower my risk. My friend, that is the opposite of conventional wisdom. You need to slowly but surely ease yourself into retirement from a risk perspective. Number two, you can't go from, well, I've been spending $5,000 a month, and in retirement I want to, dream of spending $12,000 a month, and I have no idea if I prepared enough. I hope it'll work out. What in the world? That's bananas. It's an official technical financial advisor term, bananas. And so you need to make sure that as you're getting closer to retirement, you're evaluating your portfolio, you're making the tweaks along the way to keep you online, but that assumes that you're starting with the right tools in place. So a lot of times we recommend folks is, the sweet spot seems to be 5 years out is when you should start making the adjustments to your portfolio so you don't have to make dramatic changes at the last second so that you're as prepared as possible. And you should be year by year evaluating what tweaks do I need to make with the way I'm contributing to my accounts? What tweaks do I need to make with my spending? What tweaks do I need to make with addressing debt? What tweaks do I need to make with my investments? But again, if you're taking the wheel and turning it 90 degrees every second, that's a lot closer to day trading and gambling than it is traditional investing. And that's going to get you in a dangerous hot water.
Couldn't agree more. So what I gathered from there, Jake, is, where Olympic athletes start training for their sports, their specialties at 5 years old. When should our clients be buying their grandkids piggy banks? Do we think 3? Is that too early? We need to start training those savings muscles at a very, very early age. So viewers, listeners, go buy your grandkids piggy banks. Get those savings muscles working early.
There's no too early, that's for sure.
That's right, exactly. I think one thing that we can't overstate as far as the value that we add for our clients, so much of the work that I do, I could say this firsthand, obviously, is, just helping clients take the emotions out of some of these big decisions that get thrown at them. And again, it's a very different phase of life when you go from working and earning and putting money in these accounts and kind of visualizing, okay, I know I'm going to retire eventually. It might be 15 years from now, 20 years from now, or even shorter, 5 years from now. But when the rubber meets the road and all of a sudden that's 5 days from now, right? That's a very emotional thing to go through. So how are you helping helping clients take the emotions out of these decisions that they have to make?
Well, I don't even know if taking emotions out entirely is it, but rather finding the tension between the emotion and the logic, right? So, it's not an either or thing. It's not, even engineers freak out about market corrections. Even the people who come in with detailed spreadsheets, they have to reconcile. It has to go from your head to your heart. The people who come in with a detailed, line by line item spreadsheet are also the people that are afraid to spend money and are, their significant others are like, you save this money for a reason, but because they're so petrified by seeing a dollar value decrease, They don't know what they can spend, right? So there's a tension to be found.
Ironic.
It is ironic. And so what that translates to is we have to start with our numbers, know how much gas it takes to get where you're going, right? But similarly, then allow that to inform your behavior, right? So if I know that I need X amount of risk and I can afford X amount of lifestyle, well, then you have to be willing to implement the changes to get there and then exhibit the behaviors on the way to continue that path, right? So, if you're that person who on their spreadsheet has every item mapped out, but you won't spend money, that means there's a disconnect, right? If we're given litmus tests. If you're that person who hopes retirement works out and you've never written a budget, same thing, opposite approach. You're not getting there, right? If you're the person who says, I want to live for today because I'm not promised tomorrow, and when I'm 80, I don't want to be taking bucket trips to Italy, I get it, but you're going to have emergencies that pop up. You got to be accounted for, right? So all of retirement is like a rubber band. We're finding the tension between fun money and the unexpected, between being prepared but not wanting to spend, between spending too much and being prepared, right? So that is really what it all comes down to. And Johnson Brunetti, in a phrase, exists to take the fear out of your financial future and give you confidence in what lies ahead. How do we create that confidence? By receiving clarity from a written retirement plan. So you have to start there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, things ebb and flow, and we all know the market doesn't go up forever. And we know that in the bad years, it's not going to be that way forever. But the beauty of having a written plan is you can always, again, you're going along this road, but you've got the end destination in mind. So, I'm a big believer. Everything happens for a reason. And, if you're not learning from something, you're letting it impact you in a negative way. So, when these wins happen or when we have really good years in the market and we're reviewing with clients right now and we're saying, look, your safe money did incredibly well. And, oh, yeah, your risky money also did incredibly well. I'm reminding people every conversation is not going to look like this. So let's celebrate the win. Let's remember this conversation where you made, throw out a number, you made 22% in your account. We're not going to be able to look you in the eyes and tell you that every year. So when we need to celebrate that. But also when the market goes the other way, notice what I did there. I didn't say if, I said when the market goes the other way. You need to also be able to learn from those setbacks. And again, the beauty of working with a group like us is this is all we've done for 30 years now as a firm. So we've learned from the setbacks that other clients have had. So, obviously I value the faith and trust that folks have in us. But we've become so successful as a firm for a reason. Like it was not an accident that we're here and we've got the clients we have. So again, celebrating wins, learning from setbacks, everything that we do as a team on our advisor side is taken from all the breadth of knowledge that we have over 30 years of working with folks exactly, in this phase of life that you all now find yourself in. So I think that kind of hits on topic 4 and 5 that I wanted to talk about: celebrating wins, learning from setbacks. When you have the end goal in mind, you can not only know what a win is and what a setback is, but you can also then adjust, right? And that's critical. Right. And from the standpoint of, well, why a group like Johnson Brunetti? And again, we're not here to convince you all that you should get help, but if you're looking for help, there are a few things that obviously I feel we discuss as a group and as a firm that, frankly, could just be getting missed out there by a lot of other folks who, kind of do what we do. But it's all about really just making sure you've got a right plan in place for the road ahead. So I want to offer everybody a resource. The resource we have for you today is really centered around this question of, are you ready? What is that end destination for all of you? And if today's conversation has been helpful, we want to empower you by getting you this resource. It's the Are You Ready to Retire Starter Kit. Text the word KIT, KIT, text our team at 800-757-0436. We will get you that Are You Ready to Retire Starter Kit. It's just a really good way to figure out, okay, how far is this destination? What's it going to take to get there? How is my vehicle today designed to help me there, or is the plan I have now even appropriate for that next phase of life? So
Yeah.
it's just a really good way to address the what ifs of the road ahead, and really help get you on that road to retirement in a way where all of a sudden you're there and we're not having to hit the reset button. So
Yeah.
text the word KIT, text our team at 800-757-0436, and we will get you your Are You Ready to Retire starter kit. So Jake, here we are, Mailbag Minute.
Yes.
My favorite section of these podcast episodes we do. And naturally, again, these are all viewer questions. So folks, viewers, listeners, if you want to get one of your questions answered, again, text the team, text us the question, and we'll be able to address it in our next Mailbag Minute. So Jake, first question, it's all about managing required minimum distributions. The viewer asked, my RMD, my required minimum distribution, it starts at age 73. How can I maintain my current tax bracket in that next RMD phase of life?
That's a good question. RMDs become one of the more insidious things working against you as you get older from a tax perspective, particularly. One of the things a lot of folks do is delay taxes indefinitely. Hey, let's not pay taxes at all. And then they get backed into a corner when they hit RMD age, and their pre-tax retirement accounts force withdrawals. And at that point, you're in that corner. You can't adjust anymore because now you're forced to withdraw money, which can force you into a higher tax bracket. And so long story short, you need to be evaluating not if you should pay taxes, when. And most often that means at least proactively getting ahead of it. Don't wait to pay taxes until you're forced to. Through RMDs, start paying them now. To what extent requires your plan. I just met with an appointment literally right before we started meeting. And then by doing this, should save about $400,000 of taxes and IRMA surcharges over their lifetime. That's a big deal.
Sounds like it is a big deal. And that sounds like, oh my God, that situation must be so unique. Folks, it's not. I mean, more often than not, we see people who all of a sudden they're 10 or 15 years into retirement, those RMDs start, and now they find themselves in the highest tax bracket they've ever been in. So, again, a lot of people aren't willing to have those conversations. They don't have the knowledge to have those conversations. When I say people, I mean like other advisors, like other groups.
Yeah.
I always talk about the role that we have for clients in that phase of life. And it's not, we're not getting you to the top of the mountain. You've done that yourself. Our job is, how do we get you down the mountain in the safe, secure, tax efficient, way possible? So, that's just such a good point you bring up. Okay, next we have a question about withdrawal timing. Jake, when should I start taking withdrawals from my IRA and Social Security? So starting to game plan income.
Yeah, I think an income plan is really what that question falls under the umbrella of, as when should I take Social Security, pension, IRAs, versus the assumption is working or pulling from Roth IRAs, brokerage accounts. The short and sweet answer is, generally speaking, it almost always makes sense that your pre-tax accounts you should withdraw from first, your tax-deferred brokerage accounts you should withdraw from second, and your Roth IRAs you should withdraw from third and last. That is generally speaking. However, what you have to find the tension between is, in some senses, delaying Social Security as long as possible will get you the most from the program, but might leave you exposed by taking too much out of your assets. Similarly, if you start Social Security early, you have that guaranteed source of income in the early years when you're young enough to use it, but it might mean that you run out long-term because Social Security isn't high enough in your latter years. I can't give you a short answer because there's no one size fits all, but you need to figure out when the right timing is, not just for Social Security, but in light of your larger plan, which means you need a cohesive income plan, not an answer for my Social Security alone.
You're exactly right. The income plan is it's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? You're not going to solve it in one sitting. You almost have to lay all the pieces out on the table. You go up, you do the bird's eye view, you stand over the table, and then you can figure out how all the pieces fit together, because, these situations that we're seeing, no two are alike.
That's right.
Finally, we have a great question about retirement planning. I'm planning on retiring in 3 years. Should I make an appointment with Social Security?
No. Don't waste your time going into a government office filled with bureaucracy when you cannot take action anyways. If you go to the Social Security office, they cannot give you advice on how much taxes to take out, on when you should take Social Security. They can simply give you the number. Save yourself a trip and go to ssa.gov and download your most recent statement. But if you're 3 years out and you have yet to make a meeting with a retirement planner, then yesterday is when you're supposed to make that meeting.
Yeah, and I think it's also valuable. Go to the ssa.gov website, folks. Create a username and a password for My Social Security. It's just really good information to have on hand.
I haven't. I'm 33.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's a good point. I mean, we sit with people who are 65 and they're, retiring in 6 months, and they don't even know how much they're getting from Social Security. So it's a key piece of advice. So folks, get the Are You Ready to Retire starter kit. Text the word KIT, K-I-T. Text our team at 800-757-0436. That's just a really useful guide kit to help you unpack these difficult decisions and conversations that Jake and I are having with folks like you all day, every day. One of the biggest differentiators and the values that we drive here at Johnson Brunetti is, these conversations are all we have all day, every day, right? So a situation, although it might be unique to you, really nothing is unique to us at this point. We've sort of seen it all and done it all. So we've been able to learn from decades of experience from clients just like you going through the phase of life and the transition that you all are going through. So again, text the word KIT, K-I-T. Text our team at 800-757-0436, and we will get you your Are You Ready to Retire starter kit. Valuable resource, folks. So again, Jake, I appreciate your wisdom and advice as always. Every time we do these podcasts, I feel like I'm learning so much from you. So thank you. Thank you for all you do. Viewers, listeners, thank you all for your viewership and your listenership. We wouldn't do this podcast if people weren't asking for it. So we appreciate you. Keep those mailbag questions coming. Jake, enjoy the rest of your day, my friend. And folks, we will catch you next time on the Money Wisdom Podcast.
Johnson Brunetti is a marketing name for the businesses of JB Capital and JN Financial. Investment advisory services offered through JB Capital LLC. Insurance products offered through JN Financial LLC.